Hunter Pence has World Series assignments, understandably so I speak on his behalf. My name is Daron Sutton, and this is the only show on streaming anywhere devoted to college baseball. This is Perfect Game College Baseball, and we have a show this week. Mike Bianco, the head coach at Ole Miss, the defending College World Series champs, they're in the middle of a fall celebration. As Alabama comes to town for football, they'll celebrate that College World Series championship and do so. He'll explain what all goes on in that celebration. Excited to learn more about that and who has really moved forward in the fall. A couple of new transfer portal guys and, of course, the evolution of talented catcher Calvin Harris. And then we'll stop at North Carolina. I told you this was a good show. Scott Forbes will join us, the head coach of North Carolina. They finished at 11 in the RPI last year. And you want to talk about taking on challenges. This is a team that in the end, what's the number? 39 quad one games. That speaks to the ACC, but that also speaks to a coach at the highest level taking on foes in midweek games that are going to bump up that RPI even more. It's Forbes, it's Bianco, and I'll ask both of them, why do you love your jobs? Most of you would come up with kind of maybe, as I did, the short-sighted answer. You'll love to hear what they have to say. Let's get it going with Coach Forbes on Perfect Game College Baseball. Well, away we go. So as we've talked about, what makes this show great is the connection with the coaches and the athletes, especially in the fall, because I think a lot of times college baseball, outside of the diehards, loses that connect, and we don't like that, so we want to go to campus. Let's go to a great campus in North Carolina, beautiful Chapel Hill, where Scott Forbes tells us the weather is spectacular as we perform this interview. Scott, thanks for hanging out with us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, great to be on. Beautiful day here. We're getting ready to get out there and do some skill work because we're done with our fall team season, and it's a great time of year. November is in and ready to go.
All right, so big picture then, and to have good November weather, you guys tussled with Duke in a scrimmage. You made sure you dealt with them. You had Walters State. We love that program on all of our content, and you played your fall World Series amongst one another. Was it successful in your mind? Did you enjoy the way you built fall, the way you guys built fall? Probably at some point in the summer. Did it play out so far the way you've wanted it to play out?
Yeah, it really did. We always start early here. It's just kind of how we do our pitching, and it's all based on pitching like everything is in this game. But we got good weather. I felt like our guys improved. We did return quite a few players, but getting the new guys on the field and getting them acclimated, being able to play a great team like Walters State, a great junior college, and then finish with Duke, and then get us right back in. We had a little fall break after that, which our guys needed, and then we've been in the weight room ever since, and it's been going really well. But I felt good about the fall. I felt good about what we tried to accomplish, and now we're in that phase where we're just trying to get back in on the skill work and just those individual things that some of those guys need that they need to work on based on the fall.
It's interesting, as I do want to talk about your willingness and desire at one of the big programs, certainly in your neck of the woods, but to play teams in North Carolina, Wilmington and Charlotte and Gardner-Webb and Campbell and A&T, to take them on your schedule. But I want to talk bigger picture before that, just about the fact that you guys had 39 quad one games last year. Now, part of that's being a byproduct of being in your amazing conference, the ACC, but also outside when you had the opportunity, you had many teams step up, you took on challenges. That's a lot of games to battle test athletes. It had to be rewarding to see that. That's a crazy amount of games in quad one. And so for me, it says strength of schedule incredible and building strong athletes. That's the result, yes?
Yeah, I tell you what, there was a spell there. We started 18-3 and then we really hit a skid. And I was wondering if I should have scheduled those great teams. But, you want to play good teams. We've always had that philosophy here. It makes you better when you play quality teams. I've always believed in that. I believe in that, even though we have an unbelievable conference and we're going to beat up each other in our conference because everybody's so good. But our state is so good. Like you talked about, we play East Carolina now the second weekend. You got Wilmington, you got Campbell. You just have so many good teams. And Coastal Carolina travels here. They've won a national championship. I think I know it helps you prepare for those weekend series in the ACC, and that's why we've done it, and that's why we continue to do it.
You talked about building around pitching. I know that, raised by a pitcher and trying to do it myself a little bit in the minor leagues. We love that it's built around us pitchers, certainly. But one of those that I've known since his high school days is Max Carlson. He returns for you. I'd love to know just kind of the latest on Max, how things in your mind went for him in the fall, your latest touch point with him, and just tell us how Max has evolved.
Well, I tell you what, he had that injury his freshman year, and he went down after 6 games, and we were concerned that he was going to miss all of last year. But he had the bracing, Tommy John, so he was able to come back and pitch for us last year, and he ended up being our best guy, our Friday night starter. Max is a big game pitcher. Like, he likes the ball in the big moments and the big opportunities, and he keeps getting better and better. We had to shut him down this summer because he threw so many innings for us. Normally he'd have pitched in the Cape, but because of him having that surgery, we just gave him some rest, and he was able to pitch this fall. He actually is throwing. We do something in post-fall called pitch development, and we go through our regular fall season. Our guys compete against each other, and then we just try to say, okay, what is their number one thing that they need to improve on? And in Max's case, it's getting that slider a little bit sharper, just getting it as a true weapon, because he's always had that changeup, and he's been working on that. He'll finish that this week, and it looks really good. Obviously you have the analytics now, so you can really see the spin and the break and all that good stuff. So he's had a great fall and a great post-fall. So he'll finish up this week, and I think he has a chance to again be our Friday guy, but he's going to be pushed because I like the depth of our staff.
When you get Dalton Pence back after redshirting him last year, he had a big summer. I mean, he had a really big summer. Describe his summer from your perspective and what you saw in the fall as you get this talented left-hander now to help you guys.
Yeah, that was a blow to us last year. We thought that he was a type of freshman that was going to be to help us immediately, and then he had to have that surgery. He had some problems in his high school season, and he got here in summer school, and it was still bothering him. So our doctors had an MRA, and it showed the same thing basically that Carlson had, and he had the bracing. And he was throwing live to hitters late in the season, so we had a tough decision to make. Do you bring him back here around the ACC tournament? And I didn't feel like that was the right thing to do for Dalton because he's got a pro future. And, I just felt like throwing him out there that fast wouldn't have worked. So we got him in the Coastal Plain League. He pitched a ton. He came back in here, and he looks really good. I mean, his velocity's good. His body looks good. He's going to make an impact. And he's fighting also to win a spot in that rotation, but again, he also recovers really well, so he could easily be one of our back-end guys, so that'll play itself out. But I'm really proud of him. It's a credit to him, man. His body, I mean, those kids that have injuries, they have a choice. Do you feel sorry for yourself or you get to work? And he got to work.
Love those stories. That's kind of how a lot of athletes responded during COVID when they couldn't do a whole lot. Love those stories.
No doubt.
You mentioned Pence. Coach, as a guy you thought was going to be a possible impact freshman. Is Kyle Percival possibly one of those guys that can be an impact freshman as we switch to another left-hander?
Yeah, I mean, he had a great senior season. We thought he would be drafted, but he was so set on coming to UNC. And he reminds me a lot of Jordan Montgomery when he was at South Carolina. Just a big kid, got command, got a really good breaking ball. So he's definitely going to make an impact, and he's pushing. But he is a freshman, so he's got to learn different things. But just ability-wise, it's there for sure. And he's been working post-fall on the changeup because he can drop that breaking ball and that slider in there as much as he wants. But we'd like for him, being a lefty, to be able to locate and use that changeup effectively. But he's getting stronger. That's the biggest thing for freshmen. They got to be able to handle this long season. But we're lucky to have Percival for sure.
Yeah, out of Andrew Jackson High School, Lancaster, South Carolina. We saw him a lot as a prepster. I did through the ranks. The other pitcher, and then I'll move on to some of your bats and maybe some other great subjects, is Connor Bovair. I want to kind of check in on him because I know that's a name that, read an article, you don't have to go too far, that maybe he's going to grab a baton and try and help you even more so this year. Helped you last year, certainly. His evolution is where now?
Yeah, he probably had the best fall of any of our pitchers. And he might have been the most tired kid because he threw so much. He was a freshman of the year at Siena in that conference. Pitched in the Cape, came here, pitched in the fall, a little bit of a break, pitched for us in the spring, pitched in the Cape, pitched for us in the fall. So the break's going to help him tremendously. He's already been on the break. We didn't do a lot of post stuff with him. And the thing about Bovair that is so intriguing for us is we we feel like he can legitimately be a back-end guy, but also a legit starter. So depending on how our bullpen works out, we feel good that we could put him in that role that Palermo had last year, and it's the closer role. But we also, he's fighting to start on Saturday or Sunday, maybe even Friday. So we're lucky to have that kid too. I think he's a real prospect.
And how about the evolution of the man that will catch them some, not every game, but Thomas Frick, your catcher, obviously last year was able to help you offensively. He helps you even more so as a catcher. Kind of speak to your catching situation as it revolves around Thomas and then some of his mates.
Yeah, he really took a big step forward for us the last 6 weeks. Our defense was locked down. I think we ended up leading the country in double plays turn when we put Colby Wilkerson at second base, but nobody talked about that we didn't have a pass ball. And, he runs that staff. He's one of those catchers that as a pitcher you love throwing to because he just builds your confidence. We can try to build confidence, but when your teammates help you do that, it makes you even better. He's an emotional player. He's worked hard on his body. I think he's going to have a huge year for us, and he's one of our leaders, in that category of a Jacob Stallings, of a Chris Inetta, of a Mark Fleury, which really helps our team because that guy needs to lead it for the most part when we go out there.
Boy, heady names. That's good company he's in. A couple of years ago, and Hunter Pence isn't with us today, so I'm hitting for Hunter, which is tough to do. But a couple of years ago, one of the first shows he ever did, he got to meet Alberto Osuna in his journey. And they just took off, and I wasn't needed in that interview because they talked hitting and they were passionate about hitting. He's your Alberto Osuna now. He had an amazing year last year. How important was he for your team last year? I can see the numbers. I see the 20 home runs. I understand that part of it. But there's, I'm sure, more. Again, as we said, we've already loved great conversations with him. Give us an Alberto update, please.
Man, I tell you what a special kid. One of our hardest workers, the same guy every day. Just one of those kids that's a pleasure to coach. You know what you're going to get. But, man, that kid works as hard as any kid I've ever coached. There's no coincidence he keeps getting better and better. And I think in that he can now legitimately play first base. He's gotten so much better defensively, which he needed to do because he only DH'd last year for us. We felt like he was really learning still at this level, and he still hit 20 home runs, had a lot of RBIs. So, I think you're going to see a big year from Alberto. I think he knows more about how to have an approach, how to take his walks, to get himself into more hitters counts, to get to where he's cutting back on his strikeouts. But, man, when the ball hits the barrel of Alberto Osuna, it's got a chance to leave the yard. And, he's got as much power, raw power, as any kid we've had here, including Sabato. So I can see him having a huge year. And he'll deserve it because he's one of our leaders and hardest workers.
So the leader part is where I want to go. Obviously, Vance Honeycutt had a ridiculous year last year, 25 homers, 29 stolen bases. In that, I kind of lumped them together as 63 homers because, Mac Horvath, too, jumps into that mix with, 18 homers. So you put those together at 63. Yet I want to talk a little bit more about the impact and the help to maybe some of your newer guys or some guys that were further down in the depth chart last year that may get a chance to step up. How important are guys like those three guys to kind of draft so that guys can pull along with them, to lead, to maybe carry out some things you want carried out as a head coach? How important are guys like those three, plus some of their teammates, in helping this program as leaders?
Yeah, we talk about it in our program all the time that when you are the most talented, automatically you have a choice because your teammates are going to look to you. So how are you going to embrace that? And if you embrace it the right way and and everybody leads differently. The most important leadership, in my opinion, is by example, not by words, and all three of those kids do that. So we're really lucky. Those three kids, if you went over to the weight room with us today or if you watch practice, they don't take a day off. They're not satisfied. And by the way, they just happen to be probably our three best position players. So that helps everybody else. We have some older players, too, that have been in the program in Frick and Stokely and Castagnazzi. And then some other guys that got some valuable experience last year. Yeah, they didn't have 150 at-bats, but they got in some big situations. A guy like Patrick Alvarez, a guy like Joe Jaconski, Reese Holbrook. But to see a guy like Vance Honeycutt that is that gifted and Mac Horvath is that gifted to see them work. You know, these guys figure out quickly why they're so good. You know, and when they see that, they also know, like, oh, okay, if I want to get on the field and have a shot to be in this lineup, I better bring it every day. And I know what type of work ethic and standard is expected here at UNC. And we need more than those three guys to have success. And they know it as well because they want to win. They don't want to end the season, you know, being walked off at home against Arkansas. You know, they want to walk somebody off and get to the next step and get into Omaha. So, but those three guys, you know, we're fortunate because they lead us.
I find myself envious, you know, being a bit transparent here, of anybody that stays in any job for, you know, two decades as you have, and basically stayed with the program and a full generation. The world doesn't usually work like that these days.
It doesn't.
And so I ask you, simply put, why do you love your job? Why do you love the university? Outside of the obvious, because I'm in Arizona now, but I know how special your program is, understand what you guys have done and the beauty around your campus. Why do you personally love your job? Why have you been there so long?
You know, obviously, when you work your way up in this business, there are some opportunities that come along the way, and for some reason or the other, you either take them or you don't. And I'm a big believer in, you know, your path is laid out before you, and I was fortunate that I am still here. But I love my job so much. You know, I feel like I've grown so much as a coach from the standpoint of how I look at coaching, because we all chase the wins. We all chase getting at the best baseball program in the country. And that's the personal side. But as you get older, you have to ask yourself, why are you really coaching? And I look back and I remember the coaches that coached me, and I don't take it lightly, the influence and the impact that I have as a leader at UNC of every kid that comes here, but also the tradition to uphold of all the players that were here before. You know, I'm from 30 miles down the road, and it's still a dream to me. I walk in here every single day, but it is a dream, but it's also something that I don't take lightly. You know, I wake up and I'm like, okay, I owe way more to UNC, the university, to Coach Fox for giving me an opportunity, you know, to Bubba Cunningham for hiring me, for Dick Baddour for letting me be an assistant coach. So I owe this place way more than it owes me, and that's motivating. You know, you wake up and you have a mission, but I tell our coaches too every day, the two most important things we do, number one, it's our players. You know, you have to get to know every one of them, and you got to love them, you got to care about them, because that's how you're going to get the most out of them. But they're also, their lives, there's more to life than baseball, and we know that, but these kids don't know that at that age. So I really enjoy that. You know, I enjoy the relationship side and getting to know these kids and their families, and then, you know, you still have to enjoy recruiting, because the challenge is staying in the moment, but understanding that you got to bring in another great group of players to give yourself the best chance to put the right guys in that locker room so they can have success. And a lot of kids that choose UNC, it's not just for the school, which is a huge reason. It's because they feel like we can get to the College World Series and win a national championship. So that's a long-winded answer, but, you know, I love it every day. I mean, it is awesome just to be there. My favorite part, obviously, is going out on the field and not the office side, but I'm just very grateful for the opportunity to be here in this seat.
Offices are overrated. Turf shoes and fields are the best, my friend.
They are the best. There ain't no doubt.
I was raised in that setting, too, as well, and have been around it my whole life. Thank you. That was not a long-winded answer. That was a thoughtful answer. We really appreciate your time. Happy holidays to you as we head into Thanksgiving and into the holidays, and have an amazing 23 season.
Y'all as well, and thanks a ton for all you do for us in college baseball, and thanks for having us on.
We love doing it. Man, we love doing it. And why do you love your job? We'll ask Mike Bianco that same question in just a minute. This is Perfect Game College Baseball on Perfect Game TV. Perfect Game College Baseball, and so it's interesting as we celebrate the sport. It's always fun to celebrate with those that are at the pinnacle, like Mike Bianco and his program as the reigning national champions. But I think the journey to the pinnacle is what's as much or more interesting. Mike, thanks for spending time with us. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Daron. How are you?
I'm blessed. Thank you for asking. I get to talk college baseball and then amateur baseball with men like you, and then I also get to do the same thing on the softball side with gifted and talented women.
Awesome.
Why would I be? I couldn't be any better. I couldn't
Exactly.
be any better. I promised, too, I'll tell you this, I promised Scott Forbes, we just got done talking with him, that I'd ask you the same question that I wrapped his interview with.
Okay.
Because he gave a thoughtful answer. And it's a simple question. You can take it wherever you want. You know, most people don't stay today's world in jobs quite a while. And both you and Scott have done that, right? I mean, you're kind of racking up years, and he a long time as an assistant, but you racking up that dean kind of years, winningest basketball, baseball coach in the SEC. You're at the top of that list. So it's a simple question. Why do you love your job? You've stayed at one place for a long time. Why do you love your job, especially at your university?
Well, gosh, I don't know if I've ever been asked it quite like that. But over the years, if you're at the same place, this is my 23rd year. So if you're at the same place that long, you get similar questions. I think the easy part of the question is the baseball part of it. Like you started the interview, how blessed am I, right? To be able to coach baseball and do it, and make a living from it for this many years, and then to do it in the Southeastern Conference, which we feel is the number one baseball conference in the country, and then to top it off, which I think is really the answer, to do it in Oxford, Mississippi. To do it at Ole Miss, and it's kind of the I don't know if there's a better place to do it at, and obviously I'm a little prejudiced towards Ole Miss, but when you talk about playing in the SEC, playing in the SEC West, playing at a place where baseball's important, not only to the administration, but to the fan base, to where we average over 10,000 people a game, have, over 8,500 season ticket holders. These are numbers that don't happen, but at a couple places in the entire country. And then you do it in a city or a town that's, roughly 20,000 people. We're the safest campus in the Southeastern Conference, I think, for all 20 plus years that I've been here, to raise a family, from the personal side, to raise a family in Oxford where my kids go to public schools. The bus picked them up in the driveway as they were growing up. It checks all the boxes. And so just very fortunate, very blessed.
So, wonderful answer. His answer was similar. He called his answer long-winded. I don't think it was. I thought it was quite thoughtful. So, it's interesting. You kind of pinged my mind with the concept of 8,500 season ticket holders, because the A's and Rays would be thrilled with that number. They don't get to that number, and I mean that respectfully, obviously. Right. But so with that in mind, coaching is coaching, and teaching young men is teaching young men, and I'm sure you've evolved a ton. But that side of it, the season ticket holder base, kind of the business side, explain to us how dramatically different it is now, your job, than maybe it was at McNeese State a generation ago when you first cut your teeth in the coaching ranks, where I'm guessing you weren't dealing with season ticket holders or having speeches to give to them at McNeese State. Explain kind of the interaction day-to-day on the business side that you have to deal with.
Well, I think you're wrong in that, and I mean that respectfully. Is I learned a system and a way of doing it from my mentor and Skip Burtman at LSU, and he didn't have a system for, hey, when you get to the mid-major, do it this way, but when you get to a Power 5, do it that way. It was to sell the program, and selling season tickets and getting people into the stands. It works in a lot of different ways, and so. I went in Lake Charles and all the surrounding areas, Sulphur and all those, and spoke at all the Rotary clubs and Aquinas clubs and everywhere that would have me. And did the same when I got to Oxford. And it's not just about the turnstiles and making money. It's about a lot of different things, but one of them is making money. And here we're one of the maybe 5 programs in the country that operate in the black and make money for our university, and we've become important. So I think at any level, even if you're not operating in the black, the more people that care about your program, the more that can help your program, and not necessarily just in coaches' salaries or budgetary things, but even a high school coach that, is trying to get, an outfield fence done or a batting cage, the more people that care about your program, you become important. You become important in the community, you become important to the principal or the athletic director. People care about you and people want to help people they care about. So if it's trying to get people to, for a fundraiser, you're more apt to do that if there's more people that come to your games and care about your successes and sometimes your failures, right? And so there's a double-edged sword to that. But when I went to McNeese, I mean, we did very similar things that we did when we got to Oxford, Mississippi, and I think it's almost, not right to look at it a different way. I mean, at the end of the day, we sold a lot more season tickets. We did, at McNeese. And who knows, we may have sold a bigger percentage difference than we did here in Oxford, Mississippi. And we made it important. We made it, people that wanted to come to the games. And so even at that time, I remember in the big games when LSU would come to town or other schools, and even hosting tournaments where Ohio State and other schools came, we had over 1,000 people, and for a mid-major, that was a pretty cool experience. I thought, not just to move the needle in the athletic department, but I think for our players to be able to play in a program that people cared about.
What an amazing answer. That's such a great answer. Thank you for that. And it kind of took me back to my days. He moves the needle one way or the other of being at Wisconsin-Milwaukee as their announcer when Bruce Pearl was handling the basketball program, and did exactly what you said you did at McNeese State. Yeah. That makes all the sense in the world. That's super insightful. You're going to celebrate your team on campus during a big week and then big weekend, November 9th and 12th. Going to celebrate the national championship. Tell us a little bit about your plans as Alabama comes to town that weekend.
Well, it's a big week for us, Daron, and one of the things that we've tried hard as coaches is to be able to juggle both, right? Everybody talks about the next one, and you get a lot of pats on the back, and they say, hey, now the expectation's higher, and you appreciate that, and that's great. But we've tried to be able to celebrate last year's team. I don't think it's been hard for the coaches to be able to flip the page to realize that we want to have success this year in the 2023 season, just because when you walk into that first team meeting, half the guys in that room aren't getting a ring next week. They're not going to be celebrated at halftime. They came here to win their ring. But back to your question, next week is, one of the things we've thought about with our assistant athletic director, Kyle Campbell, is, some of these celebrations, some of these events, let's try to put them all in 1 week, even though it's going to be a kind of a blockbuster week and kind of a tough week with a lot going on. It'll be a way that we can get everybody there versus do it throughout the fall where you'll miss certain people. And so we kind of scheduled this week, this Alabama week, hoping because of football that would play out, that Alabama and Ole Miss would both have great years, and they are both one-loss teams, probably playing for the SEC West. And so, it would be a great week to celebrate. So starting on Wednesday, we're having a premiere. They've rented out the Malco movie theater here. And so all the screens, they're celebrating. Many people may or may not know, if you click on YouTube and you click on Ole Miss Baseball, you can check out The Season. And when I say The Season, it's a documentary that they've done now for 10 plus years of our program. They do it a few times during the year. Well, they never released the final The Season, if you will, after the national championship. They made it basically like about a 2-hour movie that it'll premiere on that Wednesday in the movie theaters. So it'll kind of be a red carpet event where our players, their families, girlfriends, moms and dads, people in our administration will go to on Wednesday night to see the premiere. So that'll be a pretty cool event. On Thursday, we go down to Jackson to the governor's mansion, where the governor's inviting us for lunch and a chance to he's going to have a proclamation, I'm sure, and honor the team there. While we're down there, we're going to visit the state's children's hospital down there, and then we'll come on back on Thursday night. Friday, we finish up our fall with our Pizza Bowl, which is our final inter-squad game where the two players will coach, the teams. And then Saturday, as you mentioned, kind of the culmination where at halftime the team will get recognized, at the football game. And, I think that's going to be a pretty cool experience to be there in front of a sold-out crowd, a CBS national football game, for them to get recognized. So looking forward to it. A big week for us.
Yeah, I'm excited about your production team on campus. They do an amazing job, and excited to see that. A lot of us watch all their work, and I know ESPNU is going to be a landing spot for it after it's debuted there. Congratulations to them through you. I mean, that's the access you allow, the forward thinking that goes along with it, and I'm sure the trust that goes back and forth. That's amazing. So congratulations. May I check in on a few players while I have you?
Sure.
Is that okay?
Sure.
I want to check in on Calvin Harris. I know he had a good summer in the Cape. I know he, with Hayden moving on, I know he takes a more prominent role now, or at least I hope he does. But from your perspective as his coach, tell us kind of about the progress of Calvin Harris, the catcher.
Well, he's terrific, and he was a perfect game All-American player out of high school, and just one of those highly touted, highly ranked players coming in. But what can happen sometimes? He got behind somebody that was very similar to him, and but terrific behind the plate, and has caught for us. He's kind of been nipped with the injury bug for a couple of years, but when he's been on the field, he's been terrific, and not only behind the plate, but played a huge role for us in last year's postseason run, as our right fielder, and played great in the College World Series. I think he was all, World Series team, but, now he moves into that starting role behind the plate, and it's great. We tongue-in-cheek a lot of times, hashtag, catcher you. We've had a lot of great catchers in our program, and I think he falls in line with all of them. So he's had a really good fall. We knew he could catch. We knew offensively he's grown here, as an offensive player, but he's a guy that's going to bat, in the top of our lineup. And I think, because we will lose some offensive pieces from last year's team, obviously, with Elko, Bench, and Graham moving on, that we're going to need, Calvin to have a big year offensively. And so far this fall, he looks like he's up to that task.
So you're talking about the role Calvin can play, and appreciate that. Looking forward to seeing that role and what role he plays. I want to ask you about a couple of your transfers. Anthony Calarco, who comes from Northwestern, and Ethan Groff, who comes from Tulane. Within the portal, are you seeing a fit in the fall? Or are you excited to have them on campus with you?
Well, obviously, very, very excited. And Anthony had a torn labrum in his hip. And so he had surgery, and we knew about it, but, right after about the time he signed with us this summer, and we'll start hitting and start to be more full speed in about a month. So we've seen a lot of them on tape, but great personality, a kid that's going to fit in. Obviously, losing Tim at first base, there's a hole there that we need to fill, and one of the reasons that Anthony's here is to be able to fill it with a veteran presence in a lineup, big left-handed bat, and so we're excited about him. Now, Ethan, on the other hand, Groff from Tulane, has been terrific, and a guy that will either end up in center field or right field. I think could handle either one. Tremendous range in the outfield. Probably a better runner than we probably gave him credit for. We knew he could run, but he super athletic. He's got some power. He's a plus defender in the outfield with a really good arm, and a guy that I think's got a chance to hit at the top of our lineup. So, we didn't sign a bunch of kids out of the portal, but usually the way we look at it is, a way to kind of plug some holes that come up in your draft or through attrition in your program, and those two certainly are going to do that.
And you had an amazing class of freshmen that made it to campus. Obviously, you had some commits that ended up going to start their professional career. But one or two men that really have caught your eye this fall as you've gone through this journey? Are there a couple that maybe will steal some playing time and maybe have a chance to have an impact for you in the spring?
Yeah, and it's hard. It's hard in the fall, and there's so many ups and downs, especially for the young kids. I think it's difficult for anybody. I know that's the most asked question around here is tell us about the number 2 ranked recruiting class, and we got some super talented guys. But I think when the first guy that comes to mind is Grayson Saunier. He's been terrific and lights out on the mound every single weekend, and a guy that I think as a true freshman will push, to be in that starting rotation. JT Quinn, another highly touted kid from Tampa, Florida, has shown great arm strength, been up to 98 miles an hour. But he's a tall guy that's got a lot of, he's a long-limbed kid that's athletic, has got a good curveball, is working on a slider. I think he's got a chance to not only, maybe pitch on the weekends, but maybe have a bullpen for us. Ethan Leger is a transfer from Delgado Community College that's played terrific at third base for us. I think those guys probably of all the guys, and others have done well, but those three guys probably stick out to me of how well they played this fall so far.
Yeah, for our viewers, Saunier had his name called 19th round by the Texas Rangers here in this past draft. He's a young man out of the great state of Tennessee, Memphis, Tennessee. Thanks for letting us connect. I really appreciate it, and the insights that you provided, at a program that's done so many amazing things, kind of a pace car, if you will. Have a happy holidays, and certainly as you head into 23, have an amazing 2023 season, Mike.
Thanks, Darren. I appreciate it. Always enjoy it. Thank you.
We want to thank Scott Forbes for joining us of North Carolina, Mike Bianco of Ole Miss, and, of course, each and every week we're right here. Hunter Pence and I, he'll be back next week for Perfect Game College Baseball. See you next week.